So I'm really excited to have you here. First of all, you're a career guide dog instructor for the largest U.S. dog school serving the blind for 42 years, which is just, I don't know, a really cool contribution, I think, to society in general. But can you give a little bit of what's your passion? Why are you here at CHATTcon, maybe?
Well, the interesting part about that huge, long career is that it gave me a lot of different perspectives, because entering the dog guide training community in 1974, it was all traditional, very heavily historical type traditional training. But when you think about that kind of work, it still worked, meaning we had blind people safely moving around. It wasn't like the techniques didn't work. Mm-hmm. And then I got to experience what was happening in the world, and the just the whole overall atmosphere of being kinder and gentler with animals in the 70s and the 80s. And how that affected our guide dog program is it affected our traditional techniques, which is really kind of interesting, because the traditional techniques that were used in the late 1980s and the 1990s were extremely improved over what I experienced and was taught when I first started in the 70s. So it actually became a very good traditional training program if you're going to call the use of punishment and negative reinforcement good. The reality was the dogs were treated much better and were thought of as an important part of the future to let them be an active learner, even though it was still traditional techniques. And then when this whole clicker training thing came out and all of the buzz was there, that's when I realized if we're going to change, this is going to be really hard, because that's when I saw traditional trainers getting very defensive over being told that what they're doing is wrong. They were being punished heavily. So the positive reinforcement community actually didn't do a great job at the beginning. So at the beginning of their journey and their excitement to spread the word, they actually were very punishing to traditional trainers, which guess what that made them do? Just dig in their heels harder that they didn't want to change. And that's kind of when the war started, the war between traditional and positive reinforcement trainers. So I've gotten to experience that part, and I was actually personally involved because I was really interested in learning about these new techniques. And I went to a conference, and I won't say the name of the conference, and I was treated so badly because I had a shirt that said Guide Dogs for the Blind. And it was as if I was wearing a shirt that said, I beat dogs. You would have thought that's what it said. And I was just treated so poorly. The second day I gave up and left. It was actually shocking to me.
Yeah.
So that experience put me back several years about getting more interested in getting to learn something. And then I gave a shot again, and I went to a Clicker Expo, and that was a whole different experience. And that's where my passion about helping my career choice of dog guide training, helping that whole industry change to positive reinforcement training. And it was a big ticket to chew, because it was even our organization, which was the second largest school in the world, it was really, that was the first step, is can I get this organization to actually make such a dramatic change? So I'm really proud that I was kind of the instigator for the whole thing. The programs across the world, most of them are changing to positive reinforcement, and most of them are still on their journey. You don't change overnight. They're still giving clients service, and they don't stop their service to clients to try to learn everything all over again, because it's like learning training. It's worse than trying to learn training when you didn't know how to train.
Yeah.
You actually know how to train a certain way, and now you have to flip everything and figure out how to do it a totally different way. But that has given me an amazing perspective. I feel very fortunate that I have the ability to have conversations with very firm, entrenched traditional trainers still. And I can have a really good conversation with them because I know, they know I was a traditional trainer. So I kind of have an in, and I have a way that I can start talking to them about, boy, but you should see let me show you the results.
That's awesome. That's great. So for those who don't know, you are a trainer and a part of the sport of canine musical freestyle. Did I say that correctly?
That's correct.
Okay. First of all, can you describe what that is? But also, like, you're a world champion, if I understand this correctly, right? Like you've climbed to the tippity top of that world. So can you describe that some for us?
Well, when you say to the tippy top of that world, it's that world in my country, obviously.
Okay.
So even though I have competed against other people internationally via video competitions and won a title or two of international champion, I've never traveled to Europe. And Europe actually has an amazing amount of fantastic freestylers. They're actually ahead of our country as far as the numbers of really serious freestylers that take the sport really seriously and take it to the top level. But yes, I'm very proud that my dogs and I have attained several championships, and my dog Listo, who has passed, was my first freestyle dog, and he attained not only international title, but he also attained the recognition for getting 24 different perfect scores given, which was unheard of. It's only been done by a few other people, like once or twice, and he did it 24 times.
Yeah, okay. That's amazing. Are those some of the accolades behind you there in the background?
Yeah, that is. There's some of the, only the big ones.
Very nice. So I'm going to make sure to drop in some just short little couple second clips of some of this stuff so people have context here. But is there any story around there of, like, did you have similar things where going into that world you were transitioning into these positive reinforcement based practices or trying to disseminate them amongst your colleagues there?
Actually, this sport couldn't be done with traditional techniques. So freestyle is really responsible for me pushing myself harder and harder when I first discovered clicker training, because I realized the power in clicker training made teaching all these really difficult things, it made it easy. And it gave me this great communication tool. So there isn't any crossovers really in freestyle. In freestyle, people are using positive reinforcement techniques or they're not going to be very successful. Okay,
interesting. You can see my ignorance of understanding, like, the breadth of where this goes. I just haven't dove into this, which is one of the exciting things at CHATTcon. We just bring in so many different people from different areas with expertise. So, I guess to segue maybe to our last topic here, is your presentation is What's the Cue? I believe is the title here. And can we just talk a little bit, or have you share a little bit about what you mean by a cue here? And we have a number of different professionals that come together. So some know about this, some are masters probably of different aspects of it, but it's a term that's not used specifically in behavior analysis where I'm from. So it helps to kind of bridge these sometimes and say, hey, this is what it is. This is how to think about it.
Sure. So I was really excited to be asked to present on this topic, because the more I train, the better I get at recognizing cues that we as trainers normally don't think about or notice. So this presentation kind of dives into the concept of, as good trainers, we should recognize anything in the environment that is helping to cue behavior, whether we want the behavior or we don't want the behavior. If we don't recognize what's actually cueing it, what is happening, what's physically in the environment, or what is somebody saying, or a noise that happens that cues. The positioning of a person in an environment can be a cue. Just the location that somebody physically is can cue a behavior. And so many people, when you say, well, of course, the cue is I'm training the dog to sit. So the cue is going to be me saying sit. So because the human gets so focused on what they want, I want that when I say sit, my dog sits. They don't notice all the other things that are attached to that. It could be the way they bend over as they say it. It could be the way their arms move when they say it. If they trained it with a lure of food, their hand may be raised up like this when they trained it, holding the food. Get the dog's head up, it sits, right? Well, this becomes a much stronger cue than the word sit, because they usually go like this: sit, sit. The dog sits. So guess who gets reinforced? The trainer. The trainer gets reinforced because the trainer went like this. They didn't think about that they were doing it. They just did it. And they said sit, which they thought was going to be the cue. And they go, look how well he's responding to my cue. But if then they go, oh, gee, I've got to stop putting my hand up. And all of a sudden they put their hand down and say sit, and the dog just stares at them. They're baffled and they're very frustrated. So if they get better at noticing these little nuances in the environment or the things that we inadvertently do that become cues for behavior, if you can get to notice these things right from the start of training, right from the start of your work with a learner, you will be able to get rid of them really quickly and get to your goal. Is your goal a verbal, that you would just like to be able to say this word and the dog does a behavior? Or would you like to be able to have a gesture that you point towards something and the learner goes to that location? Always from the very beginning of your training, you want clarity so that your training is clearly progressing towards those cues. But the word cue to me just means what is happening in the presence of this learner that's creating that behavior, that causes it to happen. I can anticipate it's going to happen.
That's great. So for the behavior analysts like myself, we talked about stimulus control and the understanding of being able to be really fluent in stimulus control. But it usually is like this elusive term that has so much more to unpack. And this is just a quick example of similar terms going for same things. But my kind of thing for the behavior analysts who might be watching this is there are so many folks like Michele here that are just absolute masters in aspects of stimulus control. And that's why we bring people in like this to CHATTcon, because there's so many people in different areas with different titles or different geographical regions or different professions that they're in, et cetera, different applications. They're using the same things that we use, just in different terms, different words and such. So really excited to have you. Thank you so much for saying yes. I'm really excited for everybody that's watching this. The content's already live on the site, so you can watch all the recordings. There's roughly 15 hours of content that's already hosted. It's hosted now through June 25th. It's still accessible after that, but on June 25th and 26th, after you've watched all that pre-recorded content, is when we're having Q&A. So the model here isn't like a traditional conference where you sign up and attend and watch everything in 2 days. We're actually reserving those 2 days purely for Q&A based on all that pre-recorded content. So you can sign up now. You can sign up till the 24th. You can watch everything. You can submit your Q&A questions, and then we reserve that time for that on the 25th and 26th. And one of those sessions will be with Michele here. So thank you. Is there any closing comments or words of wisdom?
Oh, words of wisdom. Observation of what's happening while the learner is learning. What is happening around them and what are you doing? That's my key for the day.
I love it. Thank you.